So this is the third book in Mark Hatmaker's No Holds Barred series. Hi guys, my name is Joe and welcome to Fighting Words, the martial arts library, where I review martial arts books and talk about other martial arts related subjects. Today, I am reviewing the third in Mark Hatmaker's NHB series. This is No Holds Barred, Savage Strikes. So his two previous books have been primarily on grappling. This is his, like I said, his real entry into the striking zone of what in 2004, when the book was published, was still sometimes called No Holds Barred Fighting. Now, Mark Hatmaker has a background in and an interest in traditional Western martial arts. So while his grappling is drawn a lot from old school wrestling, a lot of his striking is drawn from, let's say, boxing that has sort of opened up to techniques that today would not necessarily be legal. So we get things like, you know, in some of his other texts, like a backhand shot, which was totally illegal back in old school pugilism. Some low kicks, some of the kicks that are in here come from old school pugilism. Some clinch fighting, again, more of that how to, you know, dirty boxing style. So the preface of this book is another really good section. I've mentioned before, and you know, concerning his past books, if I were to create Joe's omnibus of fighting, I would include the intros from those. This is sort of along those lines as well. The intro covers a lot of ground. For instance, he draws a line between simply cross-training and training for no holds barred fighting, or what we might call mixed martial arts today. So again, a distinction between, you know, training boxing, training Muay Thai, training Jiu-Jitsu, and actually going, okay, we're incorporating all of this in one environment. Why are we training, you know, ping pong and badminton for tennis, you know, if that's our goal, right? So includes that. Which is a good chapter on training specificity, right? Which applies to all martial arts. What is your goal? Are you actually training for that goal? Also in the intro, he talks about which lead to choose, and it gets into some historical discussion over why the people typically had their power side to the rear, and why he prefers to have the most coordinated side in the front. He's also got sections on, you know, getting your mass into strikes, sections on taking a punch, and the Pareto principle, which is the 80-20 rule, which is another approach to training. You know, there's a wealth of techniques out there. Which ones do we choose? Well, 20% of your techniques are going to be doing 80% of the work, so you should probably put in 80% of your training focus with those 20% of your techniques. After that, chapter 1 is on, you know, some of the very basics of striking. We get stuff on stance, footwork, upper body evasions, and how to roll a fist. It also includes some errors in this. You know, for instance, when it comes to upper body evasions, you know, you want to take your hands with you instead of leaving them behind, which doesn't help you at all. Chapters 2 through 5 cover your basic upper body striking arsenal, which for him includes like your basic boxing arsenal. I think he includes the overhand in this as well. It includes elbow strikes, and it also includes inserts, which are hammer fist shots and also forearm shots. Inserts are meant to be done off of missed punches. So, you know, oh, I missed my hook. Here's a backhanded forearm or hammer fist strike. The next two chapters are on like blatantly illegal things. So we have groin strikes. There's an entire chapter on groin strikes, including one he calls the slapper, which just seems like one of the meanest things you can do to somebody. And then he has one on street shots, which include eye shots and throat shots. After that, we get into what was still legal in some circles at the time and what is still legal in events like Lethway, which is headbutts. And he shows those with and without the clinch in Chapter 8. Including the clinch there is a nice segue into the next two chapters, which are on clinch inserts, like, smothering the guy or, stomps and stuff like that, as well as breaking the clinch, which is going to be Chapter 10. Now, some of his clinch breaks get, frankly, kind of dirty. Like, a strong whizzer is something that he shows which might actually, injure the elbow of your opponent, for instance. Chapters 14 through 18 are on striking defense, and this includes defense against headbutts. Mostly when it comes to punches and kicks, mostly what he's showing are covers. And mostly when it comes to the knees and elbows, he's showing deflections. Chapter 11 is where we get into kicks. He likes low kicks, but he likes doing this thing called a purring kick, which this was, again, printed in 2004. Just swinging your heel into the guy's shin. This is not something which has ever come up in modern MMA from what I've seen. From a surface level, it sort of looks like the oblique kick. There's a part of me that wants to be like, he predicted it, but it isn't. It isn't a thrusting kick, it's a swinging, chopping kick. But of course, he also shows like the traditional, Thai-style low round kick to the thigh. And after that, we get a couple of chapters on free and clinched knees, including a few drills as to how to mix up what type of knees you're throwing in the clinch. Chapter 19 is on pick-offs, or what we might refer to as weapons destructions. So a punch is coming in, and you sort of guide the guy's punch into your elbow, or guide his kick into your knee. So these kind of things are more common in Filipino martial arts, and they are definitely designed to make your opponent's life miserable. He gets punished every time he throws a strike at you. 20 briefly covers ground and pound. He shows some strikes that are available from various ground and pound positions, although, spoiler alert, he actually has a full book on the subject of ground and pound. We're not getting to it yet. It's on the list. Everything's on the list. So this is more of like an introductory, like, okay, if you find yourself in this position, these are the striking options that are available. 21 gives you a list of combinations, and it starts with the most basic and it moves on to some rather complex ones. So, it starts with like 2-punch combinations, and by the time you get to the end of it, you're throwing punches and elbows and inserts and kicks and all that. So this way, if you are using this as a study guide, you can use this to sort of build up from the basics into more complicated combinations. And finally, Chapter 2 is on various drills you can do, and that includes work on the pads, bag work, and also shadow boxing. So again, if you are training solo or with a partner without any particular guidance, you can take some of these ideas and drill them in these circumstances. So the pros of this book: it is very dense, especially the intro. As I mentioned up front, this is also the sort of book where, if I were going to compile, my big book of, other books or different parts of other books for fighting, I would probably include the intro of this book, because that's how much I value it and how much information is packed into it. Another highlight is the variety of strikes that are presented. When I first got this book, this sort of, made me think about incorporating things like forearm strikes and strikes off of missed punches into my bag work. And, Another pro, I think, is some of its more unique clinch work. It's sort of dirty clinching, again, with like, the smothering and, just like trying to rip the guy's arm off to get out of a clinch. As far as the cons go, as a book on sport fighting, it's somewhat outdated. It's actually a bit of an anachronism in that, he includes shifting footwork because he's studied old school boxing, and shifting, especially made famous by Bob Fitzsimmons, was a big part of old school boxing. Well, now we get far more shifting, thanks to the likes of, I think Carlos Condit was one of the guys who do a lot of shifting strikes. TJ Dillashaw was another guy who do a lot of shifting strikes. Lyoto Machida to an extent. So back in 2004, he was showing footwork that wouldn't really show up for about another 10 years. But we also get things like headbutts, which in a sport context are, for the most part, just not allowed in an MMA format anymore. Low blows, which were legal in some early MMA events, are not allowed anymore. You can punch a guy in the throat. They don't talk about that much. You can do it from like a kickboxing situation, as long as you're not like posting up the guy and punching him in the throat. But if you happen to hit his throat while you're exchanging punches from the outside, it's totally legal. So maybe some of those ideas could work into this. But again, a lot of it, published in 2004. This is 2022. The purring kick isn't a thing that manifests itself. I would say most people getting into MMA would probably have a wider variety of kicking techniques at this point. There's a lot more in the way of, feinting and, stuff like that. The striking game has gotten more complicated. And if you are looking for MMA striking, there are chunks of this book that would not apply. So, who would I recommend this for? I think for striking in general, this is a really good book. If you come from a traditional martial arts background, there are probably some things you would quibble with, especially the striking surface he prefers on the fist. He prefers like the packed part of the three knuckles, and is actually pretty disparaging about striking with the first two. But outside of that, the idea on like getting your weight into your punches, and the fact that if you are throwing punches, you're probably going to be taking punches, and how to deal with that, and some of his drills, and the variety of strikes. You don't see a whole lot in the way of forearm strikes or inserts. This may be the only book that I have that talks about what strikes to throw off of a missed punch. And because he includes things that are not for sport, the headbutts and, some of the shots to the eyes and the throat, if you are trying to learn as much as you can about striking in general, some of this might be good material. If you are thinking about striking for self-defense, you could do worse. There's a lot here that I like. Self-defense experts like Jeff Thompson have said that, boxing is a good base for self-defense striking. Well, this is a lot of stuff that you can pile on top of a standard boxing arsenal. So, if you are in that sort of school of thought when it comes to, boxing can be used for self-defense, okay, we'll throw in some of these inserts, some of these, hammer fists and forearm shots, some of these headbutts in the clinch. Some of that stuff might be more up your alley. Again, if you are looking for a book on striking for mixed martial arts, there are probably better sources out there. It's not to say this is a bad source for it, but you are going to have to completely ignore the chapters on striking the throat and low blows and striking the eyes and the headbutts. It might be a good introductory, again, especially the actual preface to the book, understanding the principles behind what you're doing. There aren't a whole lot of texts that do a better job than this when it comes to setting up, your conceptual mindset for the art of striking. But when it comes to the specific arsenal, like I said, you're missing a lot in the way of kicks, and there's a lot of the now illegal strikes that you're not going to be able to include with your MMA striking. So, not a bad text to get for that. But bear in mind, not all of it's going to be applicable, and you are going to probably have to look to other sources to help round that out. But still solid. So, yeah, as a book, I do like it a lot when it comes to the art of striking. I like a lot of what's in it. And that's all I got for this week. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next week. Thank you.